having me. Thank you for letting me come in, Patty, Fred, and everybody. I appreciate being here. And I'm excited to talk about this book because it's not just me. It's 22 different authors in this book sharing their stories. And what was really neat about Be There Now is it's not just travel. It's not just laying on the beach and having a margarita and it was a great hotel. It's really some deep stories from individuals. And some of the ones that I really liked is there's a story about a woman who I guess she has actually moved to Mexico, and she's trying to be one of the locals, and her neighbor gives her a live squid. Like a prize. I just got this and it's a wonderful thing. Here, have it. And the description she has about trying to cook this squid is just incredible. It's very, very funny. So there's some funny stories like that. There's the story about the Nicaraguan kidnapping, which you think would be scary and dangerous. It is part of the way that they kidnapped him was to put a butter knife at his knee. And he wasn't sure what they were going to do with it, but he thought maybe it wasn't a good thing. But the way he tells it was really funny, and it actually erupts into that the people who kidnapped him were a family. So as the kidnapping doesn't go well, they start having family fights in the car with him. So it's hysterical. But then there's also some really poignant stories, like a mother and daughter who go to Germany for vacation and end up talking to some school children about the Holocaust. So there is a huge range of stories. And the story I'm going to tell you is my story, because that's the one I know best. And my story kind of starts when I was in corporate America, and doing really great in my career and working on my master's, and everything should have been perfect in my life, except I had health problems. I was having major health problems, a lot of pain, just always fatigued and tired and in pain, and I went to my gynecologist, and they sent me to a urologist and a gastroenterologist, and all these people were like, well, we don't know what's going on, but take this pill, and maybe that'll help. And that's what I kept hearing. Take this pill, maybe it'll help. And of course, nothing they gave me really helped. And it finally got to the point that they're like, we think we're going to give you a hysterectomy, because that might help. And I said, well, might isn't a good enough reason to take body parts out. And then I did I started looking at all the alternatives, and I looked into acupuncture, nutrition, and hired a physical trainer, and did everything I could to try to improve my body. And it just wasn't changing. And I mean, this was years. This was about a 7-year journey of having these pains and these issues. And so one day I was getting a massage, which was wonderful, at my chiropractor's office. And the woman who worked on me always told these stories about going to Peru. And they were really out there. She'd go down there and work with a shaman. And I'd listen to her stories, but it wasn't really my thing. But this time she told a story about how the shaman had cured a man of cancer. And I said, if this guy could cure a man of cancer, he's got to do something for me. So the next thing I know, I'm on a plane to Peru to work with this shaman. And there's a lot that I could tell you about that trip. But a couple stories I want to tell you. We did work with native plant medicines. So like the peyote of the Native Americans here, we did work with that with the shaman. So there's some interesting stories about that. But the one day we were in Pisac, which is this beautiful, I think it's 4 or 5 times bigger than Machu Picchu. Just carved terrace mountainsides. It was just incredible. And I walked into this one area where there were 5 big stones. And I stood there and I started to feel something really incredible in my body. And it was actually, it kind of scared me, it freaked me out. And I went and ran to the shaman and said, I stood over there and I started to feel something, and what does it mean? And he's like, what do you think it means? And I'm like, you know what? I flew all the way down here, I paid how much money, and you're asking me what I thought? And I was so angry. And he did give me some guidance, but what I realized after that was he was telling me that I was in charge of my body, that I knew better than anybody outside of me what was going on. And I don't think we're really taught that, to listen to our bodies and how they work. I'm trying to think of the other story I was going to tell. Well, I guess, one of the last places that we visited was a place called Kesviwara, which was well, I wasn't on the normal Globus tour, but that's not anything that I did on this trip was for the normal tourists. It was an old area where they did rituals to initiate young warriors. And so we did some, again, I was corporate America. I was very staid, and I was with all these granola people. So I was down in this cavern, and we were meditating on rocks, because I guess that's what you do. But when I got up, I literally felt 10 years younger. I didn't feel any pain in my body. You know, we had to climb out of this cavern, and it was like, I literally felt like I was flying. I felt like a 10-year-old, you know, running up a hill. And it was such a huge change that, you know, I came there with all my symptoms, and that day I felt nothing. I felt free, like I hadn't felt in a decade. But that's not the end of the story. My story's not about this incredible shaman who healed me. My story's about my own realization, because when I flew home and I hit Miami, and I was racing to get my luggage, and I was trying to figure out which customs line to go through, and trying to get my transfer flight, and run into my gate even though I know I had enough time, I started to feel all the pain again. I started to feel all of the symptoms that I had. And it was amazing that it was 10 days and 2 shamans working on me to get rid of my pain. But I found out that just this fast, I could turn it all back on. And that was the day I realized that I was really in control of what I experienced. And it was a huge change in my life. That's where I started to seek out what was it that I could do to change my life, to change my health. And that led me to getting coaching myself, and led me to coaching others, and led to helping other people really learn that they can control and it can affect their lives. So I know I talk really fast, and I don't know if that's close to 15 minutes.
You're good.
But I'd love to answer any questions, or I can also tell you some other stories in the book. But what's really exciting about this book is it is stories about finding yourself or finding connection with others when you travel. And I think that really pinpoints a lot of what's in Be There Now. Yes?
Well, how does your experience help you today?
Great question. When I get a headache or when I have a pain, I don't reach for the aspirin. I say, okay, what am I doing? Where am I off track? What's not right for me? A lot of, I think, the effects that we have in our physical body is because of the way we think or are perceiving the situation, or when we're trying to do too much. And I look at you, Patty. Because we're always out there trying to take care of everybody else. We take care of our business, our family, and we're always out here, and we never tune in and listen to ourselves. And if you notice anybody you talk to who's having physical problems, you'll always see, well, I'm really busy with X. And when they can actually step back from that and realize what it's doing to their body, they can make a difference. And that's really, I think, the power of it, is having that awareness and not letting it get too far. I am by no means perfect. I still stress out and have anxiety on occasion. I am still human. But when I start noticing coming, I stop it versus letting it go too far.
What's your other personal favorite story?
Well, I love this script. I kind of told you my 2 favorites, or 3 favorites in there. There was also a really interesting story in Syria, that there was a lot of Iraqi refugees that have gone to Syria, and this reporter goes in there and actually negotiates the UN to be able to get school supplies and foods for this family. And I think it's a book that not a lot of people are able to get into in that country, and actually see what it's like a day in the life of a refugee, and what it's like to be a refugee in another country that's not really accepting or wanting you there too. So it's really powerful story. Then there's a funny one too, a real short one about Disneyland. somebody takes their mother and their family to the happiest place on earth. And their best time was she and her mother went back to the room and watched television. Because that was so much better than trying to run all the lines and do everything else in the Disneyland. So there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of variations of stories that go back and forth in here.
How did you put it together?
Actually, this is published by McMurray from Dream of Things Publishing, and he usually does travel anthologies, but his vision for this one was to have, he said there's a lot of long essays about travel, and then there's a lot of deep stories, but he wanted to have short and deep travel stories, and so he pulled together a collection.
Two things I just want to share. I know Melissa, and she has a phenomenal website, and her blogs are really great to read. So tell people how they can find you and sign up for your newsletter.
Absolutely. You can go to It's My Life Inc., or if you want to go to B Type Me, because I'm actually working on my own book now, From Type A to Type Me, which is based on what I learned here and that I'm now teaching others. So you can go to B Type Me. You can actually download the first 2 chapters of my book for free, and then you'll also get on my newsletter for doing that.
Also, you have a new little business endeavor. Do you want to share that, or is it too early?
Let me answer Marie's question, and I'll.
Just a simple one. How were you able to connect with the author? Because that's pretty interesting to be part of a book like that.
Honestly, it was nepotism. No, I shouldn't say it that way. My sister-in-law actually worked with McMurray in the past, so she told me about if any of you are aspiring writers, he does a bunch of collections of short stories, and you can put in your recommendation for your story to be added to an upcoming book, and he always has new ones coming up. So I can't say I got the gig because I was related to her, but I found out about the opportunity.
Well, I think any route works. You're going to promote yourself.
Right. And then Patty mentioned, because I do love to travel and I do love to meet others, my husband and I started a new business called Yo Soy Local, yosoylocal.us, and we've been going to Cabo St. Lucas for years. And we always stay with a friend of ours, which is just fabulous to have a friend like that. And it's always been a wonderful experience to get to know the local culture. And the last time we went there, we stayed at a resort. And it was such a different experience. It's like you didn't even feel like you were in the same country because you were so excluded. So what we've done is designed some shirts and products to help people show their pride that I'm not just a gringo tourist here, but that I'm a local like you. So it's just it's a fun little site that we have.
You mentioned when you started your story, you mentioned plants.
Yes.
Do they cook with those plants for you there?
Yes, I did participate with San Pedro cactus and ayahuasca.
Okay.
San Pedro we would take sometimes during the day, and they'd make a tea out of it.
Right.
And it was kind of funny because they'd give you a little tea and then they give you like a mint tea chaser afterwards because it was kind of bitter. And that was kind of like the San Pedro, or the peyote of the Native Americans. And it is, I didn't know what to expect because I never really participated in things like that. And I do know the first day that we went out and I'm walking around and it was like everything was so brilliant. There was one spot where I was just looking at water, and it was like I could have stayed there for the rest of my life because I was so happy. But it was even more powerful than that because I was walking around, and of course, this is just a couple days in, and I'm walking in this beautiful, it was Tipon, which is beautiful water terraces that they have there, and I'm walking around and I start doing the pity party. Oh, my husband should have come with me, and I'm all alone, and I don't know anybody on this trip, and oh, woe is me, I'm all alone. And I hear this voice say, "You are not alone." And I don't know if it was my voice, I don't know if it was in my head, I don't know if I said it out loud. I looked around to see if anybody noticed that I said anything. But it was a voice that I heard, and it stopped me in my tracks. So it wasn't, I expected plants to grow lips or, something crazy like you hear about. But it was really like an enrichment of the life and your senses that you have. And ayahuasca we would do at night, and the translation of ayahuasca is the vine of death. Sounds really great. But we'd have to do it at night because it was so strong. Your senses were so heightened. We would go into this room, they had all the windows blocked out, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and they had a single candle in the room, and as the ayahuasca took effect, I mean, I could see your face clearly on the other side of the room with one candle in the room. It was just amazing, really amazing. And I'm not an advocate of drug use, but this is actually native practices, and it was done in a
Controlled environment.
a controlled environment and in the right way. It wasn't just for an experience, it was really for deep work. And actually, if you download the chapters from my website, I don't think I get into it here. I don't remember because this is kind of the Reader's Digest version. I think I do because it was impactful, but I do get it in here as well. That when he would work with people on ayahuasca, he would have them walk backwards in the room. He'd have you say their name, and then they'd walk backwards. And it was like he could see where the trauma in your life happened by doing that. I mean, somehow it heightened his senses as well, and he was able to tap into something. It sounds crazy. All your faces are like, it is crazy. It's completely crazy. But had I not been there and not seen the effect on myself and other people, I wouldn't believe it. So it's not our normal Tuesday morning experience that we have, but I would really recommend it to people. Yeah, I don't know what Fred has in his
You guys want me to turn off the lights and light a candle?
Just walk back.
Do you have any,
Something to do with the coffee.
maca at all? Is that another form that they use?
I'm sorry?
Maca, that they give you guys maca seed or something?
Yes, yes. We would have the maca. I don't think we use maca actually, which you can, I think, actually buy in the States. It's really good to relieve anxiety.
It's actually from Peru, and they would give it to the Mayans a bit before they went to battle, because it would increase their hormones and make them more aggressive and more, so they say it's a good pre-workout they use now for things like that, but I'm sure down in Peru it's probably more natural or extract, so I'm not sure.
Kind of like picking a flower? It's like all over?
No, it's actually a tea that people use, and it's a natural herb that it's really big in Peru. It's actually from Peru. So I was wondering if they use that also.
Did you get that tea for the next
They
one?
did not use that, but we would have coca tea all the time, which is actually, that's what they make cocaine from, but in the tea form, it's used to relieve the altitude sickness. So it was amazing. You could have a cup of tea and have everything relieved.
Could I trouble you for the address?
Hope and Conche, it's the name of my article in here, is Where Light Terminates.
Well, it used to be a Coca-Cola, so why shouldn't it be a tea?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Has everybody thrown a, excuse me, a card in our container here?